Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tyler Theriault, and my contemporary issue presentation is on safety. So this is the Texas City refinery explosion that happened in 2005. This could have been prevented if proper safety measures were taken. This is the Louisiana chemical plant explosion in 2013. It could also be prevented through proper safety requirement that could have taken place. And this is the Deepwater Horizon in 2010. This is a more serious accident where almost all of the people on the rig were killed due to an explosion from a oil pipe. It also was one of the biggest oil spills in history. The risk. More than 100 million Americans live close enough to one of the more than 470 chemical facilities across the country. What this means is people are at risk who live near these chemical plants. If proper safety regulations aren't taken, 9/11 really made people think about how well these chemical facilities are protected even against terrorist attack. So even if the proper safety stuff is taken through, they're not always prepared against something like a terrorist attack where someone can drive a truck up and full of explosives and blow the place sky high, and then all this chemicals and nasty stuff is in the environment. And children can play near these facilities, and it just would be a mess. Some preventions for safety, obviously, for people who work at the workplace would be for them to have eye wash stations nearby. All of chemical plants do movement of hazardous materials like nitric acid and stuff like that, and 70% of all work-related eye injuries were caused by contact with these materials or objects. As well as the faster the response time from the exposure to the chemical reduces the damage significantly. So if the people who work at these chemical plants knew where these eye wash stations are, and there was a clear map of them all throughout the facility, people's eyes could be saved even less damaged. Fire prevention. Fire extinguishers always. It's super important to have in any chemical facility or any facility anywhere. Is the first defense against fires. So every small fire, every large fire starts from a very small one, and these small fires can usually be detained before they can spread. So if people knew where these fire extinguishers were, they would, a lot less fires would actually happen and get out of control. Also, not a lot of people know that not every fire extinguisher is the same. We have our Class A, which is a water extinguisher. Those are usually for materials such as wood and textiles. We have our dry chemical fire extinguishers. Those could be used for Class A, B, and C, as well as Class B/C fires. You also have your carbon dioxide extinguisher. Those are for your Class B and C fires, as well as your metal, sand for your Class D fires, as well as the water mist extinguisher, which is just for your Class A and potentially your Class C hazard, which is again like textiles and wood. So these are the different fire extinguishers and what they're used for. As you can see, the most versatile would obviously be your dry powder, which can take care of your wood, your flammable liquids, your flammable gases, as well as your live electrical equipment. Vaporizing liquids fire extinguisher is just as versatile. COT is next, with it being able to have flammable liquids as well as live electrical equipment, but they're not so good with putting out fires for wood and paper, as well as in confined spaces, because CO2, you can get asphyxiated if the room's not well ventilated. And aft foam is only good for wood, paper, as well as for flammable liquids. It is not very good for something like live electrical equipment or flammable metals, because people sometimes forget, magnesium is very flammable when it comes in contact with water, as well as sodium. So where plants where sodium or magnesium is readily available or manufactured, some people may need to have fire extinguishers like dry powder or vaporizing liquids fire extinguisher to take care of these flammable metals. Excuse me. Fire prevention continued. It's good to have clear and precise maps of all the locations of the fire extinguishers in the building. Of course, this is self-explanatory. Knowing where the fire extinguishers are before a fire breaks out really cuts down on the time it would take for the fire to spread to something larger that's uncontainable. Something extremely important is actually training on how to use the fire extinguisher. I mean, nothing compares to the real situation in which a fire actually is happening and you have to hurry up, pull the pin, squeeze the lever, and point the tube where the extinguisher comes out. And a lot of people, panic, they forget, they can't pull the pin out, as well as some people think, just buying a fire extinguisher, you're safe, because they don't realize that these fire extinguishers expire, they have to be recharged. I mean, it's really good to have someone come into your workplace and recertify or recharge and inspect every fire extinguisher monthly. Sometimes this is actually weekly if there's extremely hazardous materials being manufactured in these plants. So if you have the right training and you have the right equipment, you can really prevent disasters like we saw at the beginning of the slideshow from happening. We also have different sprinkler systems. We have a dry pipe system, which is pretty self-explanatory, where the pipes are completely dry or not primed with the water. We also have a wet pipe system, where the system is already primed with water. Now, these two systems do have their benefits and they do have their disadvantages against one another. We also have a water spray and a water mist. And some people are like, well, what the heck's the difference between a water spray and a water mist? Well, water spray actually sprays water onto the fire like a fire hose, while a water mist actually puts a water vapor in the room, fills the room with water vapor. There are also foam sprinklers for fires that cannot be contained with just water. We saw that during a chemical fire or an electrical fire, water is usually not the best thing to extinguish these fires. We saw that usually foam or a dry foam works the best. There are also different types of sprinkler heads for different applications. In some rooms there may be, excuse me, like I know in general houses we use the red dye in the sprinkler head, which means it breaks at 155 degrees. That's usually the norm. Usually office buildings, stuff like that, that's the norm. But for something where there's more heat involved, maybe there's not any people in the room in a manufacturing space where temperatures can reach excess of 300 degrees Fahrenheit, they may have a purple or black fire suppression tablet in the sprinkler system. So when it breaks at these temperatures, maybe 300 degrees is normal operating temperature, but over 350, there's an issue wrong in the system and it needs to be shut down. So those are the different types of sprinkler heads and their applications. And this is the end of my presentation. Please, any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.